Thanks so much for joining me for this episode of the But First She Failed podcast. Do you ever wonder how you'll stand out as AI integrates more and more into different industries, businesses, and careers? What if I told you that you have something that is unique to you that other competitors and AI alone do not have? Wouldn't you want to figure it out? Today's guest is a trailblazer doing just that. She's helping people stand out in the time of AI with a unique superpower, their own personal stories. Patrice built MyStoryPro for people who are done blending in, founders, experts, entrepreneurs who know that in a world of AI generated noise, the most powerful thing they have left is their own authentic story. As a Gracie Award winning former Today Show producer, she spent 15 years making videos and teaching storytelling to brands like Netflix, Lululemon, Apple. When generic AI started turning founders into robotic voices, she co founded MyStoryPro with her business partner, not because she's technical, but because she understood what storytellers actually needed. My Story Pro is a thought partner that pushes you to be a better storyteller, not just a content generator that does the thinking for you. It has had tremendous success right out of the gate. She also still works directly with founders and companies, consulting on storytelling and how to stay human while leveraging AI. She's a Chicago girl originally that became a New York transplant, and now she's based in Lisbon, Portugal, where she resides with her 3 sons. In this interview, we discuss how storytelling can make you stand out in the time of AI, why major corporations are paying top dollars to fill storytelling roles, and how to use AI to your advantage. This and so much more. Patrice, thank you so much for being here today. I'm super excited to have this conversation with you.
Me too.
Yay. So you're in Portugal, and I am so excited to have this conversation. First of all, Lisbon is one of my favorite places. It's so underrated. I feel like now it's becoming more like people talk about it more. But I remember when I studied abroad what year was that? 2008. I remember it was like like people didn't know about it as much, and it was just the coolest spot. And you now live there. Like, how
Oh
cool is
my
that?
God.
And you're
There's so
yeah.
many Americans here now and coming here. There's like a mass migration
Oh my
into Lisbon. It's like, yeah, it's actually the most Americans in its history in the past like 2 years. It's like a total. So, yeah, I mean, it's not why I moved here, but like it's actually, I
a
almost feel
thing.
like it's in danger of kind of losing that special
That
sauce because of like people like
yeah.
me, like people just are keep coming into this country. But yeah, it's
Yeah.
amazing. We moved
Yeah.
2 years ago from New York.
So cool. And then you're actually also originally from Chicago, which I love. My husband makes fun of me because yesterday, or it was when we're recording this, was, yesterday I think it was Chicago's like 189th birthday or something like that. And I shared it on my Instagram, and my husband's like, oh gosh, like Chicago people love Chicago so much.
Oh, I know. It's so true, isn't it? And until I moved to New York, just when you're in Chicago, you're sort of just brainwashed into being told that this is the best city in the entire world. And you
Yeah.
believe it. Like you
Yeah.
actually believe it. And then
Yeah.
you leave and you're
Yeah.
like, I mean, I love Chicago, but
Yes.
like, it's
Yeah.
Chicago. I feel like it is like this, second cities, right? They usually they have that.
Yeah, yeah, that's so funny. I had the opposite experience when I moved to Miami from Chicago. I remember I was like, "Oh god," like I was very like, I guess you can say arrogant because it's like you grew up in Chicago, you grew up with the coolest museums, the best, like all this really cool stuff.
Yeah.
And, like I moved to Miami in 2010 and it was not what it is today. Like now it's like a second New York. It's like very cosmopolitan. It's
Yes.
exploded over the last like 15 years when I moved here. But it was like for me at least, it felt like a small town. I was like, where are the museums? There was culture, but it wasn't like,
Yeah.
it wasn't Chicago. Chicago is a much
Yes.
more established city. There's a lot more.
I just heard a hint of your Chicago. My kids will too. They'll be like, "Mom, where are you from Chicago?"
But your accent.
Like, I'm so
I
sorry. I'm so
I
sorry.
love it. I love it. I love it. I know it comes out when I speak Spanish too, and sometimes it comes out in Spanish. Like I feel like I'm
Oh,
like, oh, like people think I'm Portuguese because sometimes I'll say certain things with an accent. It's like, and my last name, my husband is actually Jamaican, but his great grandparents are from
oh,
Portugal, so they have that
so
score as
cool.
yeah. So they have that last name, which is very like common. I don't know. So sometimes the Chicago comes out in Spanish.
Okay.
How cool! How cool! I
Yes,
love that.
yes.
I love that about you. I love that you're a Chicago girl too, and so much in common. I love that about you. So I'm going to ask you the icebreaker question I ask everyone when they come on the
Okay.
podcast. What did you fail at this week?
So you're starting off with the big ones. What did I fail at this week? I mean, my God, I mean, I have 3 sons under the age
Mhm.
of 12, so I feel like, in some way I mean, I'll be honest with you, like, it's kind of a bigger thing, but I'm in a really intense phase of my business right now.
Yeah.
And I think, I remember when my kids were younger, everyone's like always talks about like this mom guilt. And I never had that. And I've always
Mhm.
worked. I've worked, in corporate and started my business. And I just never felt
Yeah.
like this guilt when they were little. But
Yeah.
I think it's much harder when your kids get older. I think actually when they're young, who cares? Like they don't remember. Like doesn't matter.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now that they're older, I actually feel the guilt. So I feel like I fail several times in a week because I'm conscious that when they get home from school and their activities, I still have US clients. Like my business is still very US based. So my stuff starts kicking at like
Yeah.
5 p.m. And they're coming into my room being like, Mom, watch the show with us. And it's hard. It's like
Yeah.
I feel like I'm consciously making these decisions and sometimes
Yeah.
I don't get them right.
Yeah, and it's so tough. Like that's like the reality of motherhood and being an entrepreneur or having a career. It's all these things. It's like we want to show up in all the areas, but it's so tough because we're so divided. My kids are very small right now, but it's tough because it's like I have certain hours, and then I'm over here sending emails out at midnight so that I can be available for dinner time. But then sometimes there's a call at midnight, at dinner time. These things. So
Yeah.
I get it. I feel like it's the universal conversation that all of us moms have, right?
Yeah,
So
and I hate calling
so
it as a failure. It's not I don't view it as a failure, but I do think, like, every
it's hard.
day you're sort of having to make decisions, and some days it's like,
Yeah.
absolutely, I can binge watch Stranger
Yeah.
Things or Modern Family or whatever, whatever they're watching, but then there's some nights where it's just like, I no, like, I actually can't. Like, mom has to
Right.
get this deadline done? So
Right, right. No, I get it. So I hear you and I feel the same way. Like I didn't make great dinners this week and I, called it in. And so I hear you on that one. But Patrice, I am so excited. You have such a cool trajectory. We have so much in common. You used to work at the Today Show. Like you have such a, well, I'm sure we're going to get into that in this conversation. But could you please let the listeners know a little bit about what you do, about My Story Pro, about your storytelling coaching, about all the things? I want to hear about it.
yeah, I mean, so what I've always done has been baked in this belief that storytelling is the greatest asset that you can have as a business owner and as someone in a business. But storytelling is not something that is natural for most people, especially if you go off on your own. We're always taught, especially in companies, to stay behind the scenes. Like you're not
Mhm.
supposed to stand out, in corporate
Yeah.
America. So all of a sudden, if you get out of that landscape and you're starting your own business or you're going fractional or you're going to be a solopreneur, now all of a sudden you're supposed to just like be in front of your business and know how to market and know how to be this
Yeah.
your own publicist. It's very challenging. And so what I do is that I help leaders and founders become better storytellers in their business and specifically personal storytelling because I think that what we do is not unique. There's a million people that have podcasts. There are a million people in this world that help with brand storytelling and storytelling, but there's only one person that has had your exact path in life, your exact childhood, your exact point of view, and that shapes everything. So that's why personal storytelling is so important to do. And so that's what I help people do, become better storytellers.
Yeah, I love that, and I think that that's so true. I think that's one of the things you and I have in common is, like, of course, I also come with background in news and TV. I also love storytelling and think it's so powerful, and when I have for example, I, coach certain clients with podcast strategy, and one of the things that I help them create a podcast is based on who they are, their lived experience, what makes them but it's like you said, everyone has their own secret sauce, their own unique thing about them that makes them stand out, and very few people know what it is. Even publicists, I feel like, have like a tough time figuring out what makes their person. I remember when I was a booker for TV, I remember there would be people that like publicists pitching me celebrities. I'm like, but this isn't interesting. And then we would find the interesting angle and then bring them on because it's like, oh my gosh, why didn't you even tell me? Why didn't you tell me about this thing over here? That's going to be like, people are going to be interested in this story. So I hear you. Like, I think it's so powerful. And My Story Pro is what you have at your newest venture. Can you please tell us about this? I think it is so cool.
Yeah, no, that was not on the bingo card in 2024, but me and my now co-founder, when we developed this AI tool, but it's now a tool and a community and it's called My Story Pro. And actually the impetus of it was sort of on the backs of a failed launch. When I moved to Portugal, I shut down my video studios in New York City. So my primary income was making videos for companies and then making videos for entrepreneurs. And then on the side, I would always have masterminds. So I would coach, maybe groups of 10 to 20 women, but that was always sort of like icing on the cake. That was not the main thing. But when I moved to Portugal and I'm like, all right, new life, we're going to try out Europe, I had to reinvent my whole business. And this is at the end of 2023. And my husband, we thought he was going to be able to keep his New York job. He ended up not. So when we arrived here with three kids, like didn't know anyone, knew everything, I was the only one bringing an income. And so it's really amazing when you are in these positions where you have no choice. Like you do not have time to overthink things, right? You just have to go. Like, cause my husband
Yeah.
needed time to figure out what his next move was. And so when I did a product launch of classes, and it didn't bring in the revenue that I thought it was going to, like, I kind of panicked. But rather than kind of sitting around, I was already running AI classes. I got into AI quite early because a lot of my storytelling students were turning in, and this is like 2023 in the spring when ChatGPT just came out at the end of 2022. But they were turning in these video scripts about their founder story, but they were ChatGPT. And I
Oh
was like,
no.
well, we can't have this. I'm like, this is
Yeah.
awful. And so I kind of naturally got into AI because my whole thing was like, this is the train's left the station, but surely there's a better way to use AI. So when I got to Portugal, I was already just organically running these workshops. And the premise was come along, see how I'm using AI from a storyteller perspective, and let's see if we can use AI to emotionally connect. And that started naturally, like but at the time I was not thinking of this as a business. It was just like, I'm just learning this new stuff like everyone else was at the end of 2023. And then fast forward into 2024, I had this launch that was supposed to take my family to a healthy place and it didn't go well. So then all of a sudden we were in this headspace. I'm like, well, I need to figure out a better lead magnet. Like I need to bring new people into my funnel. And so we decided to make a chat bot. And at the time, this is before people were doing custom GPTs. This was not is now, at the time, this lead magnet, we basically programmed it with some of my methodology, my storytelling methods, and people would, give me their email and I would ask it some questions and I would send someone an Instagram post or a LinkedIn post ready to post, but in a personal
Wow.
story.
Wow.
People like literally lost their mind. And I
Yeah.
remember I had all these thousands because I happened to be speaking at a summit that spring. And so I was in front of all these new people and this was my lead magnet thinking I was going
Mm.
to get them in so they could actually buy my storytelling
Yeah.
programs, and
Yeah.
they didn't want that. They wanted this bot. And it took me a hot minute to kind of wrap my brain around. I'm like, but I'm a storyteller. I'm
Yeah.
not a tech
Yeah.
AI person.
Yeah.
And then I had this aha moment in April where I'm like, what am I doing? Like, I have people literally begging to pay me. They're like, what do you want for this? Like, I will
Wow.
pay you money to just be able to tap into this. And so we sort of put everything on hold. My now founder vibe coded our MVP product. She doesn't come from a coding background. And we vibe coded an MVP. This is the beta version of my Story Pro. And we're like, let's see if people will want it. And we released it on Black Friday 2024. And within 45 days, we were hitting 5-figure MRR and we have not looked back since. And it
Wow.
has
That's incredible.
evolved. It has
Yeah.
evolved, but that's the origin story of like, and everything is always baked in helping people tap into being a better storyteller. And we
Yeah.
realized that we just hit this nerve because people were not getting what they needed from ChatGPT, you know, still arguably, like you're just not,
Yeah.
yeah.
100%.
Yeah, and also ChatGPT and Claude and all the other LLMs, like their sole purpose is not to make you, Paola, the best storyteller possible and to help you show up in the most real, authentic way. Its job is to give you what you want as quickly and efficiently as possible. And
Yeah.
that's not what our intention of our AI is. It's actually to push back and not give you what you want as quickly or efficiently, but not quickly, because we know that if we really are going to use AI in this way that doesn't like rot every one of their brain cells and their original thought, you actually need to train people's behavior on how they are using AI. And that is with pushback and to be like, no, 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 here, what about this? And I want you to come back to me with this. So all of a sudden you're actually engaging in a dialogue as a thought partner. And that's why people become obsessed with my tool, because you just get insane, in-depth insights that you just
Yeah.
don't get anywhere.
Yeah, I love that, especially as someone that, I really started using AI, ChatGPT in 2025 and this year. And I realized, oh my gosh, it can do everything for me. And then for a while, I relied on it too much. And then I started realizing, I'm like, it doesn't really sound like me. It sounds kind of void. It's kind of blah, right? Like
Yeah.
it's not the essence of who I am. And whenever I sit down and actually write out my thoughts, I get so much more of a response, whether it's via email or via like podcast or whatever that is. It can help me with admin stuff, but I've definitely been seeing that, right? As a consumer. And I think it's so important that we tell our stories. How can, now in this landscape where everyone's using AI, everything seems kind of blah,
Yeah.
how can people use My Story Pro? Maybe if you can kind of walk us through like what is a practical way to use it. I think you mentioned LinkedIn, you mentioned IG, which for me, like I remember we met at a conference a few months
Yes.
ago. It was so
Yeah.
cool. It was great meeting you. And I remember one of the things that I told you was like, I just don't have the bandwidth, right? Like, I am a storyteller at heart. I can sit and do this, but do I ever have an hour where I can just sit down and like it takes, if I pour out into my podcast, but then to pour out into a LinkedIn post or into something else, which I know I need to get on. I need to get on all these different platforms. It
Mhm.
just never happens. I never have the, I'm a mom, like there's never enough time. So what I was saying, I feel like it's brilliant even for people that are storytellers. It's kind of like you're multiplying your efforts because, but anyways, I'm talking a lot. I would love to hear from you. Like, how do people use it on a practical everyday, situation?
Yeah. So we actually don't identify as a specifically as like a content creator
Mhm.
or content creation, because that
Mhm.
implies that you're coming to the tool and you're just maybe mass writing a bunch of Instagram posts or a bunch
Mm.
of LinkedIn posts. But we all know that when you do that, like you said, you start doing that on ChatGPT, people can tell. People
Yeah.
don't really want that either. Like if you're the recipient of a newsletter and you can tell when all of a sudden they've outsourced their newsletter writing to ChatGPT, you feel it, you sense it. Like I've
Yeah.
unsubscribed to so many people that I have been religiously following for years now. And it's amazing how quickly you can lose trust for for the sake of maybe saving like an hour, right? So our whole, how people are using us is really our your most strategic thinking partner. And I know that sounds really lofty, but let me put a use case to it. So for example, like if you are wanting to do a LinkedIn post or, a LinkedIn campaign, most of the time what you would do is you would probably go to ChatGPT and you would say, "Hey, I'm Paula. I have this podcast. This is who I serve. This is what I do. I talk to women about, leaving corporate, blah, 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 blah. And this is, here's my voice. Make me a post about like X, Y, and Z." And it would say, "Okay, no problem." Bam. And it would just give
Yeah.
you like decent sounding post, right? Like, so, yeah,
Yeah. But
so
blah.
how that would work with my tool is you would start out, it's more of a strategy tool. So the first thing you would do is it would ask you a bunch of questions. So you could say the same exact thing to my tool and it would say, "This is awesome. But before we actually do this and I give you the plan and the content, we need to back up like 5 steps. So let me ask you a few questions." And then you'll start getting into a natural flow. The other thing too
Mm.
is we do voice. So we encourage people not to write. So we encourage people because actually to get to someone's real voice, it's actually what you're doing with the podcast. That's your real voice. Like if people go to write, you're already censoring yourself like through the
Yeah.
keyboard because you're trying to sound different. So
Yeah.
we have this proprietary voice analysis where you can train the tool to really know your voice, not your LLM best performing LinkedIn post that you probably edited through an
Yeah.
LLM and that's your voice. Like that's not your
Yeah.
voice, right? So we
Yeah.
really are we're trying to essentially like get people out of their own way, out of their head and to tap into who they really are. And in order to do that, it's hard because you have to make someone feel psychologically safe. You have to actually, as a former journalist and a producer, the best answers are at question 9, but you have to go through question 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 to
Yeah.
get to question 9. You cannot
Yeah.
start with question 9 if you are interviewing someone or if you're on a deadline. So it's the
Yeah.
same application actually from my journalism years being at the Today Show for so long. Like I was in the field all the time and I knew that I had like, maybe 20 minutes with this person, but I had to get to the heart of the story and the soul of the story in a very quick manner. So you start to learn sort of like these psychological nuances and psychological frameworks in which to disarm someone, in which
Yeah.
to collapse trust
Yeah.
and get them to give you who they
Empathy.
really are and what they
Yeah.
really feel. And so the
Yeah.
same methods are applied to this tool. And so even the way we design it is different. Like it's not a normal, black and white chatbot. Like, we
Yeah.
design it. It's actually going through a UX design because none of us are UX designers and we just did it. But like it's warm, it's inviting. We talk to you like a normal human. Like people always are texting me, like DMing me, like I just cried for 5 minutes this morning with your tool. Like it really helps people sort of see themselves in a different light. And then in tune, it makes them more confident to want to go out on LinkedIn, to want to spend the time to get your butt moving on Instagram because you actually feel like, oh my God, this is what I want to say. Like, this is what
Yeah.
I'm doing. And it sounds hokey, but with this
Powerful.
AI world, with everyone doing the same thing and using the same prompts, we, the humans, are the only difference in this world now, which is why storytelling is having this day. Like, I don't know if you saw the headlines, but
Yeah.
a couple weeks ago, Anthropics came out. It was Anthropics, OpenAI, and Netflix that their highest paying jobs after coders, so after the builders, are storytellers.
Wow.
Netflix is paying up to $1 million for one of their storytelling roles. Anthropics has a
Crazy.
current position, storyteller, $500,000. Like these are positions that historically would never get the same cachet
Yeah.
as, an engineer or a builder. That has now become a commodity. So we are left with the storytellers.
That is so powerful. And I think that that's so true. And so, like, I think so many people, I've seen it time and time again where it's like they have this really cool story, but they don't present it. And it's like, oh my gosh, your story is so cool. Why don't people know
Yes.
about this? Why, but they're just like, this is what I do, XYZ thing, this is my
Yeah.
business. And it's like, but that's okay. But this is what makes you unique. This is what makes you fascinating. We need to highlight this thing. And I think that this is such a needed tool that so many people don't have that, right? So many people don't have the natural ability of figuring out what their story is and presenting it to the world. And I think that that's so needed. I'm also blown away by what you just said about Netflix now paying. I feel like 15 years ago, being a storyteller was like you get
Oh,
twenty
like
thousand
what?
dollars.
Yeah, like, oh,
You
that's
get
cute.
like three.
Remember,
You know what I mean? Like it was
I
not valued at all.
I remember when I first started out, when I left the Today Show I had a startup job that was horrible, but that's like a whole other podcast. And so I was sort of at this sliding doors moment. I had a newborn and a toddler at the time. So I had two kids. And I was like, oh my God, like, what am I going to do? But like,
Yeah,
I could not go back to corporate America. Like at that
yeah,
point, I was like, my
yeah,
esteem was so low. I'm like, I just got to like get my confidence, get my mojo back. And then I'll just go back and interview in New York media. Well, I remember that didn't happen, but I remember when I was first starting out, I remember a very respected mentor, and she's very successful. She told me point blank, she goes, do not say that you are helping people with storytelling. People don't get that. Businesses don't get that. You need to say content marketing. And I remember staring at her and I'm like, oh God,
yeah.
what is content marketing? And I took a general assembly class in New York City. I don't know if you have this in Miami, but general assembly is like a big kind of adult education where you can go back to school and take
Wow.
classes on digital marketing and content marketing. And I did a general assembly class because I was told that I should not ever say storytelling. And I listened to this woman for probably the better part of like a year and a half until I just couldn't because I'm like, this is not what I do. Like I help, I store, I
Yeah,
what I've done, in editorial land, but I can
yeah.
help people in business tell stories. So it's so funny to me now to see this because it's having like a full circle moment. And I'm like, we've known this. Just go to Netflix. I'm like, what am I doing here?
No, no, it's needed. I love what you're doing. One thing that I think, yeah, it's so needed. And I hear you because I struggled so much before we move on. I struggled so much with after I was let go from my position because I also went from national news and then I went to a new startup that was very well known at the time. And I was let go from the position, which ultimately led to the creation of this podcast many years later, my journey through overcoming this fear of failure. But I remember the thing that I struggled with the most in that season was like, I'm a storyteller. This is what I do. And it was so woo-wah that it was hard to find another job that wasn't exactly the same, like in TV, and like figuring out how to take those skills and translate them to like the general workforce was very difficult for me. So I am with you where I'm like, this is like how cool that like look at where we've come to now. I'm baffled by
Yeah.
this. I'm taken aback, but we've known this, right? That it's so important, it's so needed. Even though it's I guess you can say soft skill. It is a soft skill. It's
Yeah.
like a,
Well,
but it's beautiful and it's needed. It's something that it's so powerful, So
yeah.
that you were gonna say something? Mhm.
Oh, no, I was saying, like, it's you said the soft skills, but, you ask, like, so many heads now, you have, leaders in technology that are saying, honestly, if I were to tell my kids today what they should major in or what they should focus on, like, I would steer them towards humanities. And when the
Yeah.
leaders of the tech world are telling us that actually the humanity fields are premium, that's a signal to us and to business owners that that means something. Because again, I said this before, it's like the tech is the commodity. Like the fact that I'm really into Claude Code now. I mean, I just built our investor deck. I built a website. I've analyzed every piece of writing I've ever done in the past 3.5 years and had got a manifesto on like my high level values of beliefs on AI and storytelling. I did this myself on a terminal on my desktop in about 5 minutes each. Like the fact that I can code stuff and do things. I'm doing a hackathon this Sunday in my community through Lovable, which is a massive AI company in the States. And they are hosting hackathons all over the world. There's one in Miami for sure for women, like women need to get building. And so I say this
Yeah.
with like storytelling is premium, but if you are a storyteller and you can build, like you're unstoppable. And now we can all build.
One of the things that I think is so cool about you is like you've had so many different, obviously I researched you and all the things, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I have so many similarities with your story. You went from TV to having like your own, like video and storytelling agency to then, online courses to then, now you're doing AI and this tool and these programs. Like you're doing so much. You're like, talk about staying relevant, which I think is so cool. One of the things that now you're doing is you are now raising if I'm correct, you're now raising funding for My Story Pro, which
I
that's a
am.
whole new
Oh,
area, new space that you are walking into. Can you talk to us a little bit about that journey and what it is being, obviously there's not a lot of women in tech as it is, but then being a woman founder in the AI space?
yeah. So I know nothing. I knew nothing about this space, raising money and fundraising until about 60 days ago. I am not joking you. And I remember,
Yeah,
in June
amazing.
or in November, I had a call with a woman in San Francisco who is very well known in the VC world. And she just raised a $30 million small fund for people. And I remember I got on a call with her and I was asking her questions. Like, I'm pretty sure I asked her, like, wait, can you just explain to me what a TAM is? Like all these
Yeah,
acronyms that are
yeah.
so you're just expected to know, like TAM and SAM and SOM. They'd never heard of it until a few months ago. And I remember she was asking me what I'm raising and, what my plan is. And I was like, oh, it's November. I'll be done with this by January, like for sure. And she just looked at me and she was just like, oh, dear child, not wanting to completely crush my spirit. But I will say, so it is March. I'm not done with my funding, but well, good news. So it's been a like anything in entrepreneurship, you are always learning on the job. Like there
Yeah,
is no roadmap for here's what you should do because I never thought I would be raising money ever in my life. And I never paid attention
yeah.
to it because I didn't care
Right,
about it.
right.
And so now that I'm in it, yeah, it's been a really interesting experience and it has helped me become more emboldened about what I'm doing because we need people to fund women. Like there's so much, I mean, the world is a disaster right now. No one could, I don't care. It's not about what side you're on. No one could arbitrarily look at the world and be like, wow, things are going really great. Things are just in flow. They're not in flow. And, the people that run the world are men, and so there's just a huge deficit and there's not enough women leaders in the world. And that also starts with women not getting funding. And talk about AI, like all the people that are helming AI right now and making some pretty scary decisions about our future are all men. Like it doesn't add up. Like half of the world's population is not represented at these tables. And how does that start? It starts by funding people like me. It starts by buying services from you or like
Yeah,
you have to keep the capital funding women. And so
yeah.
so anyway, we have two female investors right now, which is really exciting. And yeah, we have big plans. We have really, really big plans for My Story Pro.
I love that. I love that. And one of the questions that I had for you was, we met at this conference and I thought you gave a really powerful speech and you shared your story about how it was so easy for you. And I can relate to this. It's so easy for you to pull out the stories and see the stories in other people, but it was harder for you to find your own story, right? and pull that
Yes.
out. And you're kind of like what made, sharing your story, right? Because it takes being vulnerable, it takes a lot of things. I don't know if you could maybe talk to us a little bit about that story. I just found it so powerful and so inspiring. And I think being vulnerable is just, it's kind of a superpower instead of a liability, which I know 90%, I was there. I think most of us see it as like, I don't want to be vulnerable. I don't want this to be a liability. How are people going to perceive me? And maybe if you could share a little bit about that.
Yeah, I mean, well, I was just saying, so I teach storytelling. So I have one signature program called Founders Fire. I just kicked off my new cohort last week. I have 10 unbelievable women, half corporate ladies that are looking to elevate their personal brand, and then the other half are going fractional, just starting their business. And I'm always self-conscious to the fact that, I'm from the Today Show. Like, I told stories at a high level. I was paid to do that. I did it very well. So it's easy to be like, well, okay, that's easy for you to say, just go storytell. But I always preface this, no, I was really good at telling other people's stories because that does not require me to put out my real thoughts, my real opinions, my real thought leadership. That requires nothing. The hardest thing I ever did was actually make a shift consciously to having to step in front of my business. It took me 3 years to do that. So I started my business in 2017. I was my video business. I did not have a website. I didn't have a public Instagram. I didn't have LinkedIn. I had nothing. I literally would get projects because I was word of mouth and I thought that was really cool. Well, guess what? It's cool until it's not. And then that does plateau. And I remember I had this aha moment where I'm like watching people on my LinkedIn or on my Instagram and they're talking about storytelling. And I'm thinking, I have so much more experience than you, or that's not true. But here I am, never putting myself out there, never putting my own voice or my own thoughts. And so I had this moment where I said, I have to learn how to get online and what that means for my business. So in 2020, right before COVID, it was very serendipitous. I ended up giving this stranger on the internet a lot of money to be part of her mastermind. But she truly did change my business. She taught me everything about she just changed my brain. And so I remember in 2020, right as COVID, the world shut down, I launched my first boot camp online. I'll never forget, it was 8 weeks or 4 weeks, $247. And I had 7 people buy it. And I thought I was a millionaire. I'm like, oh my God, I just had 7 people, strangers,
Yeah.
give me $200. Oh my God. And so that was my belief raiser. And I was off to the races. So from 2020, I had my third kid. For the next 2 years, I launched and relaunched and launched and launched, like just constant learning,
Love
just
that.
4 week boot camp. Then I did an 8 week. Then I did a storytelling mastermind. Then I got into this and I ran classes for 2 years straight until I got into a groove. And so
Yeah.
that's how I really developed but my point is, I was really bad. Like, I look back, I just did a newsletter on this. I actually found some of my first videos in 2020, which is not that long ago. I am so embarrassing. It's just embarrassing. And I'm like, oh my God, I cannot believe people even like watched this or bought something from me because it's really hard to watch. But you have to. You have to start. Everyone starts there. No one just wakes up one day and it's like, I am going to just start to express my ideas and people are going to listen. No, you're going to express your ideas for a while and no one's going to listen because you're not like compelling enough or you haven't formed your own thoughts yet. Like, you might have to learn a
Yeah.
little bit, like, what do I believe and how do I want to show up or what do I want to say? Like, what am I trying to do in this world? Like, and so
Yeah.
again, like, kind of even back to my story pro, like, that's the essence. It's like you and what you really want to do in your one life, right? Like, we all want to be epic or no one wants
Yeah.
to be average. But in order to do that, you gotta do the work. Like, you gotta, like, go in to know, like, what
Yeah.
you're doing and why you're doing it, and that's really, really hard to do on your own.
Yeah. And I remember you shared at the summit, you shared a little bit about your time at the Today Show, and you shared a little bit about kind of, I think you called it, quote unquote, a secret that you had while you were at the
Oh,
Today Show, right? And how it was something that you felt kind of ashamed of, and then one day you just were like, "No, I'm gonna share this, and I'm gonna," and then the response you got was amazing. Could you share a little bit
Yeah.
about that journey with
Yeah.
us?
So I mean, sort of. So I wear hearing aids. I have a very bad hearing loss. I was at the Today Show in like, I don't know, 2014, 15, 16, 17. It was an amazing experience, but it's also you're made to feel disposable because you are really, especially in TV. You get it. Your job's always on like you're only as good
100%.
as your last story, and like the best you can do is just don't f up and don't go to
Yes.
black, and then onward. What's your next story? So I also felt very much like I was a late bloomer. Like I was an intern until I was almost 30 years old. It took me a long time to figure out that I was even going to be in this space. And so once I figured it out, I got going quickly, but I've always had that self-conscious, like I'm late. I've missed whatever bus there is. I've always felt like the bus left without me.
Wow.
And so I felt like I could not let anyone know that I had a hearing loss and I had hearing aids because that's like a mark against me, or I don't know. It was so stupid. And I was just self-conscious. I was like, I don't know. Like I was like in my late 20s, early 30s. Like you don't want to, be like different. And hearing aids is not like glasses. So I one day I had my hearing aids. No one knew. It was amazing how like I never wore my hair up. Like I never would wear my hair up. If I was in the control room, like people would hear feedback because my hearing aids give feedback if you put like a headphone on, and people would be like, "What's that feedback?" I'd be like, "Oh, I'd be like, I don't know. Like, what's that feedback?" I mean, I
Yeah.
literally was like psychotic. And so one day I had my hearing aids, and for whatever reason, I kept them in like basically a jewelry box, which is stupid. And I had it on my desk. And this Maraid, I'll never forget, Maraid pounces up. She goes, "My God." And I was long distance with my now husband. She's like, "You're engaged?" And I'm thinking, "What are you talking about?" And she looks down at the box and she's like holding the box. She's like, "Let me see you're engaged in front of the newsroom." And I had this moment where I'm staring at her like, "Oh my God, I can't believe." So then everyone thinks I'm engaged. So now everyone is coming to my desk. So on top of it, I now have like an audience of like people and like my most embarrassed secret. And I looked at everyone. I'm like, "I wear hearing aids," and it just came out, and everyone just stared at me, and I like ripped them out, and it was anyway. So you think my story? You think I'd be fine and dandy? No, it was anyway. It took me a long time to like kind of own that, and it was only until recently that
Yeah.
I kind of did a big post and a video about it, and it went completely viral. I ended up getting invited to speak on so many podcasts. I ended up getting invited to Cannes. I ended up getting asked to speak. It opened up, like, not even about hearing loss, but like because of what else I was talking about, people then saw what I did. And like, I was on a panel in Cannes last summer and I was
Wow.
like, streamed into this agency in Minnesota and had like a debate with the head of digital at this beauty company I'm blanking on. Like, so it was amazing. And actually, I got so many messages like, "Oh my God, I'm self conscious about this," or "Yeah, this happened to me too." And it's like, I felt like a hypocrite. It's what I teach people to do. And yet here I was being
Yeah.
like not forthright, with my flaw. So it was a really good
Yeah.
lesson for me as well.
Yeah, I think that that's so powerful, and I think we can't say it enough that so often the thing that makes us vulnerable makes us human, right? And that's what people really relate with, right? That's kind of the whole, I'm sure, the whole aim of storytelling, right? You are making people human beings, right? We're not perfect, even though we think we're supposed to be perfect in all spaces. It's like the reality is when you really connect with an influencer, you really connect with someone out there, it's most of the time, 90% of the time, it's because they share their hearing aid story, right? They share their vulnerability, they share their thing. And so I love your story because it's like right, you're human, right? You hid this for so long. And then when you finally expressed it, look at the response, the overwhelming response that came from people. And I think that that's such a reminder of that. A lot of the things that make us different, we shouldn't be ashamed of them. We should celebrate them in a way. A lot of times where it's scary, but when you do, look at how beautiful things can turn out. So I think
Yes.
your story is so inspiring and so inspiring. And Another question I have for you that I ask everyone when they come on the podcast is, you are thriving, you are killing and crushing it in so many areas. Really, your story is really inspiring. But was there ever a season in your life where you feel like you quote unquote failed? And if so, how? And what did you learn from that season?
Oh my God, like all the time. I mean, so I think here's this misnomer. There's this misnomer that like, that it's like destination arrival. But I think when you are ambitious and when you have big goals for yourself and you are after a big mission, and in my case, I take my mission very seriously. Like I really believe storytelling is a bridge builder and we need more storytelling so people can understand each other better. So I think there is a deeper there's a much more profound reason, and so many voices that aren't heard and stories that aren't heard are the ones that need to be heard, but they're suppressed. So, when you are striving for big things in life, like the high moments, that's the rarity, right? Most of this stuff is just, it's either like, okay, another mundane day, or like, boom, you feel like, yeah, like, I mean, even with this raising money, like it's March. I haven't raised my full money now, and if in another year or in another time in my life, I might make that mean something. I might make that mean like, well, that means XYZ or that means this. But I know better. Like it takes longer, I mean, that's why I'm a big proponent when, something does happen, you do have to really celebrate it because it's a lot of low moments. I mean, even with this most recent launch. So I have a high ticket premium mastermind. It's like a 12-week program. It's very intense, but it's amazing. It's very intimate. Like it's live and anyway. But it's a higher ticket, right? And so to fill that is not like a normal, I'm not like making a post and being like, "All right, sign up for this program." Like it takes it's more, right? It takes a longer trust period. And so this most recent one, as of like 3.5 weeks ago, I had 3 people in it. Mind you, this is a revenue that's like we are very much dual income household. It's a big deal, right? Like 3 people versus 10 people. That's huge difference in revenue for me. And 3.5 weeks ago, I had 3 people in it. And I was freaking out and also really low about it because I felt like, God, I have a very loyal audience. I know there's people in my world that want to do this or need this. So yeah, it was a mental exercise in keep going, keep showing up, keep talking about it. There are someone there that's listening and they're thinking about it. And this is not on everyone's top of mind. They have a million other things going on in their life. Like, so I ended up with 10 is my max. Like I don't take more than 10 people. I ended up with 10 people. But it was literally when
Wow.
I tell you the last day, I had my 10th person the morning of, this was last Thursday was my first, yeah, last Thursday was our first class. I had a woman from Austin, Kate. She left me a email and it was like, I am in, sign me up. And I remember like literally getting it and we're like, here we go. But it's so easy. Like I could have mentally checked out easily a few weeks prior to that. So this is kind of a
Yeah.
long-winded response, but
Great.
the failure moments are a lot. And the only way that you don't constantly catch yourself from like fully going down and spiraling is, yeah, it's like keeping yourself at that level where you're like,
Yeah.
I'm not going to overly think about making this mean something
Yeah.
deeper or something about
Yeah.
me. I'm not saying
Yeah.
it's easy and I have harder days and harder weeks, but it's a muscle. I really believe it's a muscle. It's like you get
Yeah.
better at it of like,
Yeah.
bad, that felt yucky. Okay, onward, next day, new day, right? You kind of
Yeah.
practice doing it.
Yeah, I love that. I think that that's so true, and I love your advice about it. It's kinda like this, like, tension, right? It's like you're don't go too low, don't make it mean too much, right? Because if it means too much, then it's like that's where you really get set back, and that's where you don't wanna get back up and try again, and that's where I believe that's when, people actually, like that's the saddest thing, right? When it's like, you coulda just taken 5
Yeah,
more steps, you woulda gotten into the thing, so I love that advice, and I love that that's, how real that is. It's like most of the moments are those mundane moments or those low moments, and celebrate those high moments 'cause I think
yeah,
there's
you
this,
have
like,
to. Yeah, it's a sludge,
fantasy.
right? And it's like, it's so slow, and also you'll have a spike, and then and then a spike, and actually, this might help your
Yeah,
audience, the same time I was going through this launch, a really good friend of mine she used to work in TV with me, she was like a baller, next Netflix executive, and she left to go out on her own a couple years ago, and now she's just killing it as a keynote speaker. She's amazing, and she left me this long voicemail, this long WhatsApp voice note, and it was like she had a program launching on Tuesday, and she's at South by Southwest, she's at TEDx, like she has
Mhm.
like really upped her game in the last 2 years, and she's like, I can't fill this course for Tuesday, but I have to start it because I already have like X amount of people in it, but I feel really horrible. And she's like, what do I do? This is Tuesday. And I said to her, look, you have nothing to lose. I'm like, so why don't tomorrow, Monday? Like, I gave her some advice, like what I would do, because why not? Do you
Yeah.
know that she came back to me like that same week, like on Wednesday? She goes, I want to tell you that the next day she ended up doing a random Zoom, and she's like, she is like a coaching Zoom. She's like open house coaching to her target audience. Come. She sent an email out to her list. I'm going to be around for an hour and a half. Like, just come. I can maybe give you some hot seats. She did that. And then she went through her entire email list and she looked at every single email that had clicked onto her sales page and her landing page, but didn't buy. And she personally reached out to all the people. Do you know that she got 9 people? 9 people.
Wow.
And
Wow.
that is the stories you don't hear. And it's the people like her or even myself, right? Where people see like, oh my God, 10 people at this higher, priced mastermind.
Yeah.
Oh, that must be nice. Like, oh my God, like
Yeah.
it takes it out of you. And it's same thing with my
Yeah.
friend Kim. Like, no one knows that she had 9 less people almost
Yeah.
36 hours prior to her starting, but she decided to just put her ego aside because she's like, I feel stupid. Like, I'm doing all this cool stuff and yet I can't fill out my class that's not even that expensive. What is wrong with me? I'm like, nothing's wrong with you. Like, try it one more time. And it's just such a great story because you
Wow.
don't hear those stories.
Yeah, you really don't hear those stories. You think that it's like I did the thing, now that's it. You know what I mean? Now you're kind of embarrassed. You're like, I put the offer out and that's it. And so that's a really cool story because so often for us, like myself included, it's like sometimes it takes that extra email, that extra step, and it's like I love what you said about putting aside your ego, right? So often we're like, it's our pride, right? We're like. It's
Totally.
either insecurity or it's pride, right? Like, I
Yes.
don't want to be annoying. I don't want to come off pushy. But the reality is, like, that's how you make it. And I love that. Thank you for being real about that. I think that that's needed. I think people need to hear these stories more often. Thank you so much. And man, you have so much. Like I could talk to you for hours and
I know. We
hours,
can talk for like
Patrice.
5 hours.
I
I
can
know.
talk about all the things, even your trajectory of like New York. I remember I loved also your story. We're gonna have to bring you on another day to talk to you about your story of like when you left your Today Show job for the what was it for the startup and then things went sideways. I can relate to that because that happened to me too. Crazy, but look at where it
So
led you to.
horrible.
It's such a beautiful story. But where can people find you? Where can they follow you? Where can they go? Like, if they're like, I need my story pro, like, I need to figure out my story, where can they go?
Yes. Yeah, no, thank you. So MyStoryPro AI is our website and there's a free day trial. So you get 7 days to try it out. And we do a lot of classes. Like we have we have amazing classes. And like we had an AEO expert, which is how do you get ranked on ChatGPT. So we keep everyone really
Oh,
relevant. Like we want people to, especially females in historically excluded communities, we want you to be part of this next build, right? And I say build in quotes, but we need you
sorry.
part of this wave. We don't want people sitting out on the sidelines because they're scared of the tech part. So we're very passionate. So anyway, mystorypro.ai. And then honestly, Patrice Poltzer, I'm on Instagram and LinkedIn. And then I have a newsletter too that is basically like it's a little bit of a diary, but it's also always baked in real like behind the scenes stuff, what's going on, like even with my family or like the hardships of, trying to, raise kids while you're building a business
Yeah.
and all that stuff.
The highs and lows of raising kids. I hear you like that. So I actually want to join your newsletter. So guys, I will
Oh,
leave a link to your website. I'm going to join it. So I'm going to leave a link in the show notes to, how to get
okay.
to My Story Pro. I'm going to leave a link to your newsletter too. Patrice, thank you so much for being here today. I got so much value out of it and I know the listeners did as well.
Thank you. This was great. I will come back anytime.